Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your lunch break to come and join this Time to Talk session, the title of which is Collaborating on Content-Based Pedagogy, Takeaways from the JACET 2023 conference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for about sort of 15-20 minutes. I'll give an overview of the JACET conference. I'll talk briefly about my case study presentation, and I'll also talk about some of the plenaries that I attended at the conference. And then there'll be a short question and answer session, and then I also have a few questions for us to reflect and talk about. Okay. So yeah, feel free to just have your lunch and listen for the first part of the session. So just to begin with some basics of JACET. So JACET, for those who are not familiar with it, it stands for the Japan Association of College English Teachers, and they have an annual international convention. This year was the 62nd installment of that, and the conference ran from the 29th to the 31st of August. It was held at Surugudai campus, the main campus of Meiji University here in Tokyo. And there were approximately about 120 sessions. The conference was a little bit smaller, a bit lower attendance than previous years compared to my last visit in 2018. I was told that this was the first fully face-to-face conference since the pandemic, so that could go some way towards explaining slightly lower attendance. But as usual at JACET convention, there were a wide variety of different session types, and many were held in English, but there were also quite a few conducted in Japanese. So we had plenary lectures. I'm going to talk about two of those in a moment. A variety of different workshops, symposiums, case studies, of which I did one. I'm going to give an overview of my case study in a moment. There were a fair few invited speeches as well, particularly some interesting speeches by participants from Indonesia, because JACET had just recently become associated with TEFLIN. That's the Association of Teaching of English as a Foreign Language in Indonesia. And I attended several of those special invited speeches, and they brought a kind of added dimension of education and international development to the conference, particularly regarding the language of instruction in public primary and secondary education in Indonesia. Very interesting. The content areas were diverse and represented the breadth of the field of teaching English in higher education. So there were sessions on applied linguistics, global Englishes, the main skills, reading and listening, speaking and writing. The case study presentation I gave, which I'm going to talk about next, was set in the area of content integrated approaches, and this is a growing area of interest in JACET. There have been more and more on that content area over recent years. So just to give you the theme, the title of the conference was Reframing Collaboration in Language Education and Beyond. So the main overarching theme was collaboration. And collaboration in this sense branched off into two kind of dimensions, if you like. There was collaboration within, so collaboration with others in the field of English language teaching, but also collaboration across. So it was exploring the limitless opportunities for collaboration between English language teaching and other disciplines. And this second discipline, the second dimension hints at how interdisciplinarity was a prominent sub-theme at this conference. So I'll just talk a bit about my case study presentation. My presentation explained the challenges of developing a content-integrated approach to teaching international relations as part of an English curriculum. here at University of Tokyo, but also at Rikyo University, where I started teaching these content courses. And I located my case in the content language integrated learning, or CLIL, for short, theoretical approach that informed the design of my course. And I also explained the historical context of the course to outline how it evolved over several phases. The core focus of my presentation was the most recent iteration of the course that I taught in the PEAK program here at Komaba campus last year, and it included 11 students consisting of 5 international students and 6 Japanese students, 2 of who had studied at international high schools outside of Japan. The objective of the course was to introduce a range of theories, issues, and debates in the field of international relations. So student preparation for each lesson involved doing core readings, watching recorded lectures, taking notes, writing lecture summaries, and conducting background research on questions related to the lecture. The classroom activities consisted mostly of speaking activities, including fluency building tasks, reflecting on the lecture content, and discussions to share and compare answers to the questions. And in the classroom, we very much followed the jigsaw learning method, the method that's been discussed a lot in global faculty development in the past. Towards the end of the course, students worked in pairs or small groups to plan and deliver a short analytical presentation on a topic related to poverty and international development. And in addition to my personal observations and reflections in this case study presentation, I also draw on data that I collected from a course evaluation survey to give some student insights. So my hope really through doing this presentation was to, I was hoping that it would be of use to others teaching academic English communication through international relations or other social science subjects at the university level. And the session was effective in that sense, that it enabled me to make contact with other content-based lecturers, including staff at Ochanomizu University, who I'm hoping to collaborate with in the near future. This reflective presentation came in useful also when I was putting the finishing touches towards my current Global Liberal Arts course that I'm teaching this semester on the theme of poverty and international development. Okay, so I've just talked about my own case study. Now I'm going to move on to the takeaways from the conference. I'll talk a bit about 2 of the plenary presentations I listened to. The first was by Dr. Anne Burns from the University of New South Wales in Sydney. The title of her plenary was Reframing Notions of Research Collaboration in Language Education, Some Suggestions on Why and How. Her presentation probed a pressing issue. She looked at the limited extent to which language teachers draw on the findings of academic research, despite the fact that evidence-based practice is usually promoted as the gold standard. So teachers are often confronted with the notion that their teaching needs to be evidence-based, but this doesn't always materialize in practice. In teachers' actual daily classroom practices, language teachers pay sometimes little attention to research. Rather, they're very busy, so busy that they're led by intuition or hunches, or sometimes in highly centralized programs with a top-down management style, they may unquestionably defer to an instructor manual or defer to that manual without engaging in its ideas or guiding framework. So in other words, Anne Burns was saying there are separate cultures between teachers and researchers. And there's probably a lot of distrust on both sides. So we can imagine what cynics on both sides might be thinking. One side might be thinking, oh, they don't know what it's like to be in the classroom all day long. Or on the other side, they don't understand the theoretical frameworks underpinning their practical teaching. So the presenter advanced two interconnected arguments. One is that a rethink is necessary about the types of collaboration that could work to overcome disparities between researchers and teachers. So Anne Burns argued that the cultures need to be more closely integrated. The teaching culture and the academic culture need to be integrated. Also that the field of English language teaching needs to be more open. It needs a democratic model of researchers, so that basically teachers need more of a voice in research. Teachers need to have a greater sense of agency in research. So in terms of a resolution, Burns discussed several broad and general possible solutions to this issue, first of all. More broadly, she talked about building bridges between research and practice, and in a general sense, a sort of a rebalancing of pedagogy and research. Perhaps more specifically, Burns suggested that universities need to show the practical impact that their research has on teaching, so that there is a responsibility on the part of researchers here. Academics need to convince teachers that their research has real, tangible pedagogical implications and is not just kind of fanciful theorizing or paper pedagogy, as you could say. Basically, that it has a real educational application. So Burns followed this up with some more practical suggestions about how to bridge this gap. One point was research centres in universities, so interdisciplinary spaces with the freedom to tackle contemporary challenges and work towards finding innovative solutions. University school partnerships, another possible solution. So a dialogue between the places of research and teaching, and this could involve forging closer links between the tertiary and secondary sectors of education. Professional conference special interest groups, or SIGs, was another suggestion. Interest groups focusing specifically on the practical implementation of research and performing a function of feeding this back from the classroom to the researcher. Sections in journals for teachers and practitioners, so opportunities for teachers to publish their classroom research and perhaps their teaching reflections as well in reputable journals that are actually also read by researchers. And the final sort of practical suggestion was research centres in schools. So, in other words, forums for teachers to read, discuss, and operationalize their research. Spaces where teachers can form small research groups, plan projects, share their findings with other teachers, and share their findings before they take it to a conference or publish their work. Okay, so that was the plenary by Anne Burns. And now I'm just going to give a short summary of the second plenary that was by Dr. Supong Tangkingsaran from Thammasat University in Bangkok. And his presentation was titled Collaboration in English Language Education, Teaching, Researching and Testing. And the issue explored in this plenary was as follows. That as higher education responds to rapid changes in society, particularly Tangkingsaran spoke about the professional field of business, law and politics, interdisciplinarity he argued, has become increasingly important in English language education. So university curriculums are constantly having to respond to these needs to ensure that their students thrive in the intercultural world and that they're prepared for their future careers. And yeah, Tan King Surin's presentation was far-reaching, but I'd just like to talk about some of the challenges he mentioned. So he spoke much about the challenges for collaborating in various subfields of English language teaching, including English for specific purposes and English for occupational purposes, and also content-based instruction, or CLIL, which is my area. And I'll now outline the 5 challenges he spoke about. And these 5 points resonated very much with my experience of teaching content-based courses. So as I go through them, I'd like to just reflect on these points in the context of the challenges I face and I think deeply about when teaching English academic communication through global politics content. So the first challenge is collaborating with a content specialist to design or adapt materials. So that means a language teacher and a content teacher working together side by side. This is challenging since the content specialist would need to have a real interest in how to communicate the discipline to different audiences. A recent example of a kind of collaboration from outside of the world of teaching English in higher education, but connected to politics, is how Alistair Campbell was the Director of Communications for the UK Prime Minister, Tony Blair, in the early 2000s. And recently, he wrote an introductory textbook on politics for primary school students in England. So it's for children about 9 to 11 years old. And this was an example of an expert collaborating with an editor of a publishing company. But arguably, we need similar teamwork between language and content specialists in university education, with creative collaborations. The next challenge was to understand genres of texts in that discipline. So for instance, teaching academic English communication through global politics may require an understanding of how, say, a policy brief is different from a manifesto, or is different from a parliamentary transcript. So these kind of genres of text, they have different audiences, different purposes, and they're written in very different styles. The third challenge is meeting the expectations, sometimes high expectations of content specialists. So accuracy is a real challenge here. So it can be very difficult to take a very highly complex issue and communicate it in a way that retains its true meaning. And subject specialists may object, or they might get upset if very complex concepts and ideas become oversimplified when they're explained or defined using sort of lighter, easier vocabulary. The fourth problem is the word list development. So developing word lists or glossaries is always fraught with difficulties, as I've found in teaching global politics content. Sometimes the words on the list are more than just words. They are concepts or they're ideologies. They may be heavily theoretical. They may be highly contested. And simply giving a one-line explanation to that word may not do it justice. Entries might need to be more detailed. They might need to describe their significance. There may even need to be short and long versions made available. So a quick reference version and the unabridged longer version. The words might be highly abstract, such that they cannot be explained without using other difficult words that might feature somewhere else on the word list. And And this difficulty could possibly be overcome by producing word webs, I think, in addition to a word list. And this certainly seems like a job that a content and a language specialist could work on together. The final challenge he spoke about was genre or move analysis in disciplinary texts. So this is another complex task. So the analysis of a political speech, for example, you might examine the political speech might be examined to see how politicians persuade each other of their policies. And if, say, we're looking at transcripts of debates on foreign policy from the UK House of Commons through the Hansard, which is the official record of all UK parliamentary debates, then there might be focus on different moves within that transcript. So a focus is on, say, how emotive rhetoric is used, or even how humor is used as a tactic of persuasion. Okay, so those challenges very much resonated with me and my work. And it was interesting, plenary as well. Okay, I think I've probably spoken for long enough. So I'll stop now, and I'll just have a brief question and answer session. So if there's anything you'd like me to clarify or go into more detail on, yeah, please feel free to ask. And yeah, so we're quick question and answer, and then maybe we can move on to the reflective discussion after that.